The date is the 28th of April 2025. We are on chapter 12, volume 2, page 92. The title is al-Qadar. We have mentioned that the entire world, including the visible and other invisible universes, the ancient universes that appear before this universe, if that happened at all, and the universes that will come and do not exist yet, that is all of that is contingent. In other words, all the beings and existence, except Allah, the ever-living, all-sustaining, the necessarily existent, the one and only, were created by Allah the Almighty. He who created the system wrote down their destinies, determined their initial conditions that determined the path of their development. He knew in detail what would or could happen in them and granted all of that permission to happen. And if he did not grant that permission to happen and come into existence, it would not have actually come into existence as is necessary by the necessity of reason, and there is no choice but to submit to it. There are no two gods, one of which is good and creates good, and the other being evil and creating as such. No, rather there is only one God, the creator and possessor of all things. The one with dominion, protection, and ultimate supreme sovereignty.
That we discussed that. If the existing being is there, then it is maximum one, and there must be one, otherwise contingent reality, purely contingent is impossible without a necessary existing who kicks it as being. So it must be exactly one. So try to solve the problem of evil, or the people think it's evil, being it really evil or not evil is not relevant, or suffering and so on, by trying to have two deities, like the usual solution of the dualist, Zoroastrian, people of Manichaean, some Christian subsection, which are so far away that they don't regard them as Christian, like Marcion, the people of Marcion, who say the creator of the universe and the revealer of the old books is an evil demiurge, half god or something like that. All of this is nonsensical. That cannot exist. That's not a solution. Find another solution. Okay? They invented that. They thought about that to solve the problem what they thought is evil. Maybe it's evil, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't solve any problem. It creates an impossibility. So there's only one divine being, the one necessary existing being. And we discussed that in the matter of beginning of time and in the matter of creation and so on. That is existing in matter of action. Is he a free agent? Then he must be absolutely free. No restriction whatsoever. That's dictated by necessary existing. Otherwise, if it's a freedom which can be extended further, it's a contingent attribute. That's not possible. Or no freedom of action, zero. So zero on infinity. We could say it is zero or infinity option for this entity, for this extent. Zero option meaning is acting by necessity. But if it's acting by necessity, at least the cosmological proofs, there are even deeper ontological proofs, but they are very complex, and I did not address them here. But or it can be constructed. I'm sure it can be constructed. I have almost constructed but I'm still analyzing it. It will take maybe more months or years, maybe the rest of life, maybe it will never come out. But we know from the universe that it has various, starting in the initial parameters as separate concept from the laws themselves. The laws, someone could say the laws, something necessary, some mathematical necessity. Okay, we regard them as necessary somehow. Although it's again false, because there are various types of law, various types of universes. But let's assume there's only one type which can be realized. Okay, but there's various initial conditions, and at least one of these parameters had at least two values. Actually, most of them are over a continuum value, not only for infinite. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then continuum, like all the numbers between 0 and 1, which is a continuum. It's uncountable. For if one here present is not familiar with these things, then go and study a bit of basic mathematics about set theory and so-called cardinality. Cardinality is the number of elements in a set. An empty set has cardinality 0. A set with one element is have cardinality 1, and so etc. And the set, if we construct that regarded as already the set of natural number 1, 2, 3, 4 is called countable because you can't count. You can order them. First element, you give the number 1 or 0. Second element, number 2, 3, 4, 4. You can make 1-to-1 relation. Okay. So this is countable. It turns out there are sets you cannot count. The numbers between 0 and 1, the real numbers or the points, they cannot be counted. Any attempt to count will miss something, meaning it's not countable. Most parameters are not countable, but we don't need, even if they're countable, even if they're two choices of parameters. There must be a chooser. There's no way it can happen. Because the claim it is happening by accident is just playing game with words. What is accident? Which accident is there? We say to the start of the creation of the universe. Which accident? There's no accident. The beginning of the universe itself is the accident. How is this choice made? Who is the chooser? So a dead, blind, deaf nature cannot be, which has have zero freedom, cannot be a chooser. So it cannot be the origin of this reality. No way. So only the one with absolute freedom. Then we go to the issue of Qadar and pre-knowledge and so on. So that's excluded. Two and more deities is impossible. A deity which is acting by necessity, or is not a deity, is actually a nature. A nature is acting by necessity, which we call then automatically deaf, blind, dead nature, is also impossible. It doesn't explain the universe. Actually, it's impossible in itself, ontologically. You don't need even to look at the universe, but this is a much deeper, complex issue. Put that aside, is enough for us to cosmological proof. Okay? So we'll face then the issues of predestination, pre-knowledge, and so on. And then now we continue. So that's what we have. Only one absolutely free, necessarily existing being, absolutely free with knowledge, because choice and so on necessitate something calling knowledge and consciousness in a larger sense than our consciousness, but our consciousness is like a finite model of the infinite somehow. Some type of consciousness, which means knowledge, knowing what he's doing and making the choice. That's what is by necessity. That's it. It's unescapable. Either this or this. Okay, carry on, Rush. Just summarizing what we did in the past.
Okay. No, rather, there is only one God, the creator and possessor of all things, the one with dominion, protection, and ultimate supreme sovereignty. No victor can defeat him, and so no fugitive can escape from him. Consequently, the sacred law of Islam came commanding belief and submission to the statement, al-Qadr, its good and its evil, is from Allah the Almighty. The problem of evil. Naturally, one can understand and comprehend a matter which, when it pertains to the good, that much should be relatively clear. But what of the judgment when it pertains to the matter of evil? How is that comprehended? Regardless of the fact that a person may judge things incorrectly or relatively as evil from the limited human point of view because it is painful, such as a lion attacking a human, which is not the case, it is not evil or not evil at all, but rather some of what the harmony of the universe's order and the consistency of its rules require. What a person calls evil may be truly evil, such as disobedience to Allah's commands, by some creatures who are endowed with reason, perception, and distinction, and to whom Allah has granted freedom of will and choice, which is true freedom, as they are doers by choice within this universe and framework of its system. Hence, instead of thanking the bestowed through obedience and being kind to his creation, suddenly this human becomes a sworn adversary. Therefore, he disobeyed and rebelled, became a criminal and a tyrant, spread corruption and destruction, and destroyed crops and cattle. This is definitely evil. This could not have happened and come into existence without Allah's permission, and will despite the dismay of Allah and his wrath on its perpetrator. And it is impossible, either by reason or by sacred law of Islam, for it to be otherwise. One might say that this is a small price to pay in exchange for the blessings of reason, distinction, and free will, and it necessarily results in it. And it is impossible for a creature to enjoy having reason, distinction, and free will, then be prevented from choosing what she wants while being fully responsible. Accordingly, we say yes, but this does not explain why Allah chose a universe like this. Had he not created a universe of forced machines or infallibles had he also subjected and controlled angels? The answer is because Allah, may his majesty be glorified and his name to be blessed, is like this, as he in himself. He cannot be called to account for anything he does, whereas they will be called to account, and that's Surah 21, verse 23. You try
So
to
the
understand.
argument is that this evil, like evil action of free agents and so on, which is definitely evil because they're abusing their freedom and violating the divine command, which should be supreme, should be respected, and so on. All of these things, that's genuinely evil. A lion eating a man looks for man quite evil, but it's quite good for the lion. And the lion need food. The man crossing the way of the lion is bad luck. Conditions are so that the lion will attack him and eat him, and the lion gain energy and get delicious food. Bad luck for the man, but for the lion is great luck. So that's not really evil in the genuine fundamental sense, which are for the man say, oh, that's very bad for me. But the universe works this way. So you have to accept what's going on. The same applies for tsunami and hurricane and so on. We don't want to go these simple-minded atheist claims generally, but we can discuss them in detail similar to this. But this still, and most people argue that the free choice given to some creatures, which is usually expressed in the Old Testament, or sometimes in one hadith, which some hadiths are other authenticities with a question mark, that Allah created Adam on the image, on his own image, or the image of the merciful Lord, meaning essentially having free will and sufficient knowledge and rationality to make decision accordingly. So that's definitely an enormous. It boggles the mind that a finite being could have free will, and Allah allows him to choose whatever he chooses. Looks almost. Some people say this free will is just an imagination. It is not true. It is just a deception of the subconscious, something like that. There, you see in the internet many of you. There's no free will. Everything is mechanical. You will see many videos like that, and so on. It's really blow the mind, and abusing that is definitely evil. But creating something like that is of such enormous value in ontological level that a finite contingent being become in matter of free choice really like a projection in the finite of a divine, like an image of the divine. This is unbelievably valuable and high value. That's good. That's a good argument. So that's the reason we have this various evils or wars and all these things perpetuated by criminals and things like that. That's the price which must be paid. There's no way. There's no way to have creatures who have free will and knowledge, sufficient knowledge and rationality to be responsible. And at the same time, they choose only the good, then it's not free will. So there's no deed. That's impossible. That's an impossibility. It's not accessible even for the divine power. So if such an universe is chosen, then they will be evil. And this is the result of evil is the lack of self-control by these creatures, but that is necessitated by the genuine free will. That's a good argument. But still, someone could ask, why not create a universe of only infallible angels who never disobey and things like that? The question is that there are many possibilities of universes, and Allah is free to choose any one of them according to his own nature and his own wisdom, which we may be incomprehensible for us. And also, people have a fallacy in their minds, which is especially in time past. If Barat is here, Mu'tazili specifically said that Allah will choose the best from various options. The problem with this concept is that the best from various options meaning that the possible universes, the various possible universes, can be ordered in a internally logical way. This universe, this one is better, this one is better, this one is better, this is the utmost better. And then we expect Allah to choose the utmost better. That's only if the order is linear. And humans usually think in linear terms. They don't think multidimensional. They don't think in complex things. They think usually like the real axis. In the x-axis, we know 0 is to the left, 1 is larger than 0, 2 larger than 1, and then we go on by natural order, because the nature of numbers and counting and so on. That's fine. But the moment you go to the complex numbers, you are stuck. Because the complex numbers, you have infinitely uncountable many numbers with the same absolute value, meaning distance from the origin. but various angles, because you are on a circle there. How to order the angles there? Which angle is preferred to other one? There's no ordering principle. So the complex numbers, which have two components, real and imaginary part, or x and y axis, they cannot be ordered naturally. You can order them arbitrarily if you wish, but it has no internal logic. And the one who can order them arbitrarily is using the so-called, you guessed it, the so-called axiom of choice of the set theory. Is an equivalent to the axiom of set. So free choice allow you to order things, but arbitrarily, even if they have no internal intrinsic order. The real universes, the possible universes, are not only two-dimensional, they are very complex. Try to order them. It's not orderable, except by choice. Absolute free choice. So that's another point where the Mu'tazili and some philosophers in time past that God will do the best, of the two things, the better one, and so on. And he's obliged to do al-aslah, salah wa al-aslah, so that's based on the simple-minded, trivial idea that things can be ordered linearly. So the linearly thinking, human think linearly. They can think more multilinear, but they need to train themselves. It's very difficult. They think linearly, just in one dimension, all the things one dimensionally. They think they can apply that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the universes. It doesn't apply. So there must be absolute free choice. And since Allah is the ultimate being, the necessary existing, the absolute free, they have the most perfect knowledge, attainable, then his choice cannot and should not be questioned. Because if you question it, you undermine reason. We'll come to that in more details. So that's the way the argument goes. So whatever argument you bring, you have ultimately assumed that ultimately is Allah, the ultimate supreme and the free agent, and he cannot question, because questioning him would destroy reason. And that will be the fundamental answer to the issue of Qadar. But let's continue. So I'm just summarizing a bit, and then we expand as needed. Go ahead.
You try to understand and reason grapples with it, but you cannot fully comprehend it unless you are well acquainted with it, which is impossible. Therefore, you have no choice but to accept this truth by necessity of reason and before the sacred law of Islam. So just as you accept that he exists and that he is eternal, the first necessary existence, also accept this, namely al-Qadr, its good and its evil, is from Allah Almighty, and that he cannot be called to account for anything he does, whereas they will be called to account. And that's the same verse as before.
He cannot be questioned. Simply because it's impossible. It's rationally impossible to question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will collapse. It will make reason collapse. And I discussed that. I mentioned yesterday, you remember, I mentioned the issue of the monkey on the branch and things like that as a model of thinking to make things easy. But also a similar discussion is here. Yeah.
If you reach this point, then stop and withhold. There is no authority above Allah, nor is there accountability for his action, nor is his judgment subject to criticism or review, because he is the ultimate goal and the end of everything. So imagine that you want to review, criticize, sue, or litigate. To whom does petition lie with, in your opinion? To another necessarily existent who is equal or higher or equal to him in status? But there is no necessarily existent being other than him, hence it becomes impossible. Or is the matter limited to judgment to your mind or to the minds of the majority of rational creatures? This mind itself is Allah's creation. It is final and possible, lower than Allah in status. So how can the inferior judge the superior? If you are impudent enough to judge with your lower mind and claim that you call evil is what you call is evil is unacceptable, and that it is an injustice and a transgression from Allah, exalted is he above that, so is your mind untrustworthy. Perhaps it was disturbed in the origin of its creation, Just as you believe that Allah the Almighty and Sanctified had been unjust, it is also possible that He manipulated, tampered with, and created your mind a dysfunctional machine that is unqualified to make a judgment, as some of its judgments contradict the other. Rather, truth and honesty become meaningless, as well as good and evil.
Exactly.
One therefore finds no recourse but to the domain of the mentally insane, or to his mind, or more precisely, his hilm, forbearance. That is to say, his awareness and
No,
consciousness.
the translation for this is wrong. I said that several times, but it seemed to be the translator us. Helm is mind, to his mind.
Okay.
Helm is mind. That's a correct meaning. And usually the Arabs say this guy has helm or he's halim, meaning he's so mindful that he knows how to be forbear and how to react in the state of anger. That's the result of being mindful. So the halim is the mindful with capital M. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is halim. Not the one who's forbearing only. That's only a subcategory of halim, of mind. But the full category is mindfulness. Okay, so his mind.
Okay.
So you have to agree to refer to him. You are disputing. You're having a dispute. I'm disputing with Allah. This is unjust what they are doing to us. Okay. Another deity equal to him or higher to him, so we can judge like you in the case dispute with other human beings. You go to an independent judge. Has to be an independent, so he can arbitrate independently. Okay, but there's no entity like that. There's only one necessary existing being, max, nothing else. Okay. Or to your mind, or a common mind, there's common sense of rational beings, let us say something like that exists, which people appeal to it. That's common sense. That's agreed upon. The principle of contradiction, all these common identity, the fundamental things. Without them, we cannot talk, we cannot perceive, we cannot understand, we cannot make any sense of anything. That's good. That's not bad. But this is a finite entity, a description of features of finite entities which must be created as such by Allah Himself, because nothing in existence could have come existence without His own creation or permission to come to existence by evolution or whatever. It doesn't matter how it came into existence. All these technicality are irrelevant. Don't get stuck. Guided evolution is irrelevant. Afraid evolution is irrelevant. Ultimately, He is the one created it. But how can the branch judge the origin? If you think, if you can, your mind, you trust your mind to say this action of Allah is unjust, then how you trust that your mind is itself not, if He can be unjust and oppressive? Maybe He created your mind upside down, twisted, wrongly wired. Can that happen? Yeah, happen. It happened to us for computers. You remember, I think Pentium number 4, was it Pentium 4 in the late 90s, the rush?
Pentium 4, Pentium 120, I can't remember.
The one who,
yeah, but there was a floating up,
the one who has a problem in the calculation.
Yeah, a floating points or something issue.
Yeah. So it can happen. That's because of human shortcoming. They didn't intend to have this law, but because of human shortcoming, now the infinite being, the ultimate being, can create minds which are having a fundamental flaw. So what guarantees that your mind is the self-deficient? So your judgment cannot be trusted anyway. You have to trust your judgment, because the last thing you have is this mind. Nothing else is there. And you assume it is a perfect tool. A finite tool, limited, it has a horizon, it can be deceived by optical illusion, by mental optical illusion, by linguistic illusion, but fundamentally, all these illusions can be exposed, fundamentally. Maybe you will not be able, but other rational being will be able to study, say, this illusion deceived you, or this linguistic statement deceived you, which is okay, no problem, because I am a finite being, but the other finite one look from another angle, that was a linguistic illusion, in principle. If it's created faulty, like that Pentium 4, I think it was Pentium 4 or 2, then there's no way it can be correct, except by abolishing that completely and creating something else. So how can you trust it? So you have to make the fundamental assumption: my rationality is good, it's genuinely rational, genuinely acceptable, trustworthy, guaranteed that the one created is the absolutely perfect rationality. That's the only guarantee, really. If you if you follow the atheists who say that emerged by evolution and so on and so on and so on from a dead, blind, deaf nature, then you have no guarantee that this rationality is absolutely reliable. It's only with high probability, because that process is not infallible. And it's coming by evolution, which has faults, had deviations and things like that. We know that by the system. So the only way to make reason so reliable, in principle, I said, not for every single person, not for any operation, because we can make mistakes in conclusion, we make fallacies, we make stuff, but they can be detected and corrected in principle, even after thousands of years. The only thing is that it is created by the supreme being who has the perfect mind and the perfect knowledge in eternity, at least. We come to the knowledge later in detail. So that's what the argument. So there is no way that a finite reason could judge the infinite one. So the moment someone say this is unjust from Allah, say stop there, you are crossing your bound, you are blubbering nonsense. You could say blah, 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 blah. We don't understand what you say. But because it's phrased like just and unjust, and people fool that you have a statement. It's not a statement, it's a nonsense. But phrased such a way that look like a statement. Allah allowing hurricanes, killing people, or the tsunami of 2004, killing a 250,000 people. This is bad. This is unjust from him. He should have prevented it. This looks like a very nice sentence. It's nothing. It's like blah, 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 blah. That's it. That's a theory. Genuine is that. But it's phrased so to fool you to think you are having a statement. Because the statement is uttered by you or by someone who has similar mind like you from the community of rational people. So, relying on finite human rationality, even as the common sense, not for a single one, for a community of rational beings, if that makes any sense, meaning correcting each other. That exists, and we know that from history, from experience, and so on, in a very overwhelming way, that we correct each other, develop each other, improve on each other. Fine. But these did not emerge out of nothingness, just like that, and gain this authority. They are created by the necessary existing, the mind, the mindful with capital M, the one with perfect knowledge. So you cannot trust this while abusing the other one and distrusting him. It can't be. You are undermining. And I mentioned the story of the monkey here. I think it comes now.
Okay. Or to his mind, or more precisely, his hilm, mindfulness, that is to say, his awareness and consciousness that encompasses everything. This is a fascinating methodological reasoning, but it actually happened and became unquestionable. Oh, sorry, methodical reasoning. And had he, the blessed and exalted, not judged before you were even created and came arguing and criticizing that this universe is fascinating from his point of view, of course, and necessarily, the almighty and sanctified, and it deserved to be created like this, with this quality, otherwise he would not have created it in the first place, and you would not have been here arguing, asking questions, and requesting judgment. Hence, just your presence here today, and the fact that you are...
Answer to your question.
The fact that you are asking questions and arguing is itself the answer to your question and the final judgment in your case.
Mm-hmm.
Consequently, the problem of Qadar is, as you see, and mankind can be very argumentative. The problem of the existence of what is called evil in the world, or more generally, why is the world like this in this way and not in another way? Although it is one of the contingents, not necessary beings, it is an unstable sea that no one can reach its depths except for those who have fully understood and fully comprehended the essence of the one and the all-prevailing one, the king, and the supreme in might. That knowledge is not comprehensive knowledge, and fully understanding it is impossible. That knowledge is not comprehensive knowledge, and fully understanding it is impossible. If we accept that the fact that it is possible and not impossible, rationally or logically, except for one being, Allah, the ever-living, all-sustaining, the almighty, the most forgiving. So stop and withhold and submit yourself to Allah and give up.
And not only is only known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or at least fundamentally, it's not cannot be educated to anybody else, because it requires a mind which is infinite, which is not creatable. So you can't ask Allah, why don't you make me able to understand that? It's not possible. Meaning, why don't you make me necessary? Why don't you make me a full God? It's not possible. A full God is not created. So that's it. Just accept and submit. And that's the reason some hadith and some wisdom statements and so on reflect that, like the famous hadith, من لم يرضى بقدري وقضائي فليغادر سمائي وأرضي. It's impossible. You cannot finish that. That's how it is. You are in, but you don't like to be in, then leave, but you can't leave. So it's just a futile exercise in futility, rationally and practically. Carry on.
This, then, is the only rational solution to the problem of Qadr, namely to have conclusive knowledge and to be firmly certain that Al-Qadr is good and its evil is from Allah Almighty.
What the people call an evil. Essentially, more general, as I said, the universe as it is, with whatever it is there, how I classify it or not classify it, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever has happened in the past until this moment could not have otherwise. That's the definition, the Iman of Qadar. The problem, what is the Iman of Qadar? Now, the word Qadar is confused by many people with Qada and so on. I think we discussed that. It will come to it. Carry on, maybe we'll come to it. Clarify that. Because people confuse usually Qada with Qadar and do the pre-knowledge and then create such a catastrophic mess. It's unbelievable.
I think a lot of it is down to these weaker narrations, or the ones that are speculative, which indicate, you know, like
no,
ink is dried.
It's just throwing the Quran in the bin, essentially. The ayat we discussed, we discussed only with Barhat, but we discussed many times. You remember we discussed the ayat, Surah At-Tawbah. We discussed this week we discussed the ayah of when Moses sent to Fir'aun, فَقُولُوا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَذَّكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى, and said it's impossible that what the decision of Musa was known or decided at that moment. It was decided later and so unknowable. It's impossible to know in advance. The possibilities are still open. The future is open. So it was not, the matter was not judged and decided yet. But the Qadar, what has happened before, and the system of the universe is already done and dusted, gone, khalas. That's the Qadar. And that's the reason the formulation of Prophet when he was asked, or some Sahaba asked, and most Sahaba answered the same question, أن تعلم أن ما أصابك لم يكن ليخطئك وما أخطأك. Whatever hits you in the time past could not have missed you. It was known to Allah before it hits you. He allowed it to happen. It happened. Would not have missed you. It's gone. And the same which have missed you could not have hit you. But all until this moment. Does not mean it's so in the future. They projected in the future because the future is known. The future exists somewhere there. It doesn't. That's where the catastrophe comes and the fatalism comes. And well, Iman required, the Iman according to Hadith Jibreel, and also taking the Quran does not mention Qadar separately, except indirectly. كل شيء عندهم مقدار. The ayah about قال الله لا تتخذوا إلهين اثنين إنما هو إله. I don't adopt or believe in two deities, only one divine being. So the evil one does not exist. This is all nonsense. All of this. That's indirectly. But the hadith specify in the Iman added al-qadar at-ta'in. تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وبالقدر خيره وشره من الله تعالى. That's the qadar as explained with the hadith and from the Sahaba. Has nothing to do with the future whatsoever. And with the events whatsoever. With the system of the universe and how the universe developed until this very moment. The past could not have been otherwise. Because already decided in due course, in its own course, and the time, and Allah happened. And could not have been otherwise. Does not prevent some people make a mistake. I just mentioned that casual, it's a matter of etiquette and studying. Some people say, they add to that hadith, hadith say about the word law. If I did that and that, I would like that and that. What the hadith in full says, احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجزن. be keen to get what you want, what you think is beneficial for you. You have a business, you do the best, so you can have the best successful business. And استعن بالله, rely on Allah, and don't be ajiz. Don't submit to failure. Be energetic, be problem solver. فإن أصابك شيء, after all of that, if you did the maximum, you know, فلا تقل لو كان كذا لكان كذا. You don't go into a lamentation mode. If it's so, then so. Because لو, why? May open the key, is the key which the devil opens, تفتح عمل الشيطان. الشيطان start, Allah forsaken you, you worked hard and he let you down. Does not mean that you don't study what happened in the past today and what went wrong to avoid doing it in the future. And the Quran teaches an example for that. We discussed it in Al-Imran, what happened in Uhud. Allah said, you were killing the mushrikeen, actually annihilating them almost, until you disputed under each other with the commander of the archer about top of the mountain, Abdullah ibn Jubair, may Allah be pleased with him, and or disobeyed the command of the Messenger of Allah, which was clear and sharp. It does not require any interpretation. So he became disobedient. They ran down to collect booty, and Khalid ibn Walid came from that, killed Abdullah ibn Jubair, and killed most of them who were collecting booty. And the victory turned into defeat. So the defeat happened in the past with permission of Allah Ta'ala. Qadar, done, khalas. No lamentation, but learn from that in the future not to disobey your commander and violate the battle tactics until the commander change the tactic according to the situation. Only you learn from that. So just to clear this misconception by many people, Hadith is very clear. Be keen to get what benefit you, and rely on Allah, and don't be a failure. Don't be ajiz, disabled. Be enabled. Enable yourself. Do everything to enable yourself. If it doesn't work, sometimes it doesn't work. The universe does not cooperate with you all the time. That's because you are in a universe and you don't control everything. Don't say, if I did that, happened that, and so on. Lamentation. Don't go to lamentation, because lamentation, تفتح, open the action of the devil. Just open. So don't lamentate. Stop lamentation. Study what has happened. Correct in the future. Again, and so on. That's the way to go. So carry on.
This here, sorry, I'll repeat the last sentence. This then is the only rational solution to the problem of al-Qadr, namely to have conclusive knowledge and to be firmly certain that al-Qadr, its good and its evil, is from Allah Almighty. Thus, there is no reality to the existence of two or more gods, be that a good God and a God of evil.
That's a more important thing about Qadar. It's only one creator, one deity. That's it. That's the meaning. Because the issue of khair and shar was rampant before Islam, like 1,000 years before Islam. And this what led to the old stories about the later part of Jewish history, and the so-called second temple, and the issues with Philo of Alexandria, the issues with Paul of Tarsus, was attracted to the pagan theory of what's a God sacrifice to save the world, and all these things, and imported these pagan ideas a bit into Christianity and so on, and messed up Christianity. All of that because the problem of and if that problem was really discussed and coming to full force, especially in Persia, the Zoroastrian and the Dualist of various time, and the people, the follower of Mithraism and so on, the god Mithra, and the bull, the Baal worshipper, developed that Baal is sacrificed to save the world, all of that to make sense of the reality, to solve the problem. For them, the solution, because most of the people are pagan at that time, solution is simple. There's another bad god, that's it. But they got stuck with the problem with the bad god. I think we discussed it later, or we did not waste much time with it. Various types of bad gods and how they emerge in existence. I think we discussed some of this. You get some funny stories that's unbelievably funny and irrational, but that's when you don't follow strict rational ruling and follow just feeling and human reaction. Okay, carry on.
Rather, there is only one God, the creator of all things. This is not necessary by necessity of reason only, but this is also what the sacred law of Islam
Mhm.
requires. The sacred law of Islam came with a firm command to believe and accept the truth. Al-Qadr, it's good and it's evil, is from Allah Almighty. Therefore, you know that what has come to you could not miss you,
Yeah,
and what has missed you could not come to you. So it became one of the pillars of faith. Whoever dies not believing in it after receiving the message of Islam and establishing the proof will be among the people of hell on the day of resurrection. Be he the exalted and almighty has said, truly the wicked are misguided and quite insane. On the day when they are dragged on their faces in hell, feel the touch of hell. We have created all things in due measure
that's Qadar.
when
Yeah.
yeah,
كل شيء خلقناه
بقدر.
بقدر in the proportion in the system. We are not haphazard. It's not a magic universe. It is a proportional, mathematically controlled and rationally controlled universe. Yeah. Mhm.
We have created all things in due measure. When we ordain something, it happens at once in the blink of an eye. And that's Surah 54, verses 47 and 50.
Yeah. So that's the Qadar. When they pulled in the hellfire, ذوقوا مس سقر إن كل شيء خلقناه بقدر وما أمرنا إلا واحدة كلمح البصر. So everything was had already happened, could not have be otherwise because the system is chosen at the beginning of the universe and the development, every events already happened, has been approved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and came. There is no good God and bad God, there's only one God.
Pearls of atheism. Perhaps some people think that atheism, i.e., denying the existence of Allah, the ever-living, all-sustaining, all-knowing, all-wise, the creator by free will and choice, the absolute free, and attributing all existing things to a deaf, dead, deaf, blind, and mechanical necessity of nature is the ideal solution to the problem of al-Qadr. Accordingly, we say in reply, regardless of the presence of conclusive proofs pertaining to the existence of Allah, the ever-living and the Creator by free will and choice, which were mentioned previously and will be mentioned later in the discussion of prophecies. Regardless of all that, there is no comfort for you, assembly of atheists, in this imaginary emotional solution, which may be suitable to tickle the feelings of some superficial and naive people. Here is the universe as it is, in its reality, a necessity, with all its evils and misfortunes, and it is, as you claim, like a stormy sea of events from eternity to perpetuity. And you, O human being, suffering from the problem of al-Qadr, i.e., the problem of good and evil, are nothing but a bubble in the midst of this stormy sea, with mighty waves in the theatre of time and space, an enormous, meaningless play that has no beginning or end. So enjoy, if you wish, a life limited, full of annoyance, with absolute despair of any salvation or eternity, or drown your misery and worries in alcohol and drugs, or commit suicide. What a dismal solution.
It doesn't solve the problem. The universe is here, the suffering is here, the tsunami, it does not cease to exist because you are an atheist. It's nonsense. It's just explanation for something which doesn't solve any problem. It's here. That's it. He thinks, because it's necessity, nature is necessary like that. It's even worse. The other solution give you hope that there is an afterlife and the possibility of compensation and other things which there. It is regarding if it's true or false. Just the other solution is even more comforting than this one. This one is so bleak, is unbelievable, because uh, if it's this nature and is necessarily existing and all the variations on branching from it and so on from this necessarily existing initial nature, it's just like an ocean of events in space and time, like a foam. And any human being or any conscious being who would develop by evolution or by accident and so on is just a bubble which will burst and then go worthless. There's no purpose. It's just an ocean of events which has no beginning and end. It's completely nonsensical. This is obviously irrational and impossible, but assume it is so. What does it solve for you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't solve any one of your problems, your psychological problem or life problems, even your rational problems. It doesn't solve.
I mean, philosophers did come to that conclusion. Nihilism as a concept
Yeah, yeah,
is inevitable.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
As for those who are truly believers, those who believe in Allah, the Day of Judgment, and in al-Qadr, the good and bad of which that has been decreed by Allah the Exalted, they retain an absolute trust in the wisdom as set down by Allah and the choices He has made. That brings them peace of mind, tranquility of heart, a life that is good in this world, coupled with the greatest hope for the everlasting, eternal life to come. The righteous will live securely among gardens and rivers, secure in the presence of an all-powerful sovereign. Prior to that's 50, Surah 54, verses 54 and 55.
That's after the previous ayahs about denying Qadar and being pulled in there. First, say, إن المتقين في جنات ونهر في مقعد صدق. Well established. The muttaqin, the God conscious, are in rivers and gardens, in a well-established dwelling, in a well-established settlement, in the presence of a powerful king, and the Malik al-Muqtadir. So compare this and this. Completely different. And the atheists have nothing of that. Besides, obviously, the construction of their universe is irrational and impossible, but even if it is assumed it is possibility, it doesn't bring any comfort or any benefit. In addition, obviously, I don't mention that here. The hadith is that whatever happened in dunya or mischief because of the system of the universe is part of the testing system. And the moment a believer recognizes that, it tends to be good for him. He will get compensated for that. He get, for example, all violent deaths are counted as type of martyrdom. Every pain and suffering, he will be rewarded for his endurance. But you have to have the conscience that it's from Allah and that you expect his reward. Then you will be compensated. Even maybe the kuffar will be compensated in part, reducing their punishment for that what suffer. All of that is guaranteed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the atheist cosmos, in the deaf, blind, dead nature, nothing is that exists. It's just no purpose. It's just form. Everything is forming. Ocean of space and time forming and waving and going up and down and right and left, which is completely nonsensical, having nothing, no meaning whatsoever. No, absolutely no meaning whatsoever. It's neither a good psychological solution nor a realistic solution in matter of rationality. It is no solution. It doesn't solve.
Okay. So prior to mentioning these blessed verses, he, the Exalted, had said, truly the wicked are misguided and quite insane. And on the day when they are dragged on their faces in hell, feel the touch of hell. We have created all things in due measure. When we ordain something, it happens at once in the blink of an eye. We have destroyed the likes of you in the past. Will anyone take heed? Everything they do is noted in their record. Every action, great or small, is recorded. And that's Surah 54, 47 to 53.
And let's continue with the previous ayah. In al-muttaqina fi jannah, the good conscious one are in gardens and rivers, well established and settled in the presence of a powerful king, a powerful sovereign. The Malik al-Muqtadir. Yeah.
Okay. So that concludes that chapter. The next chapter is proofs concerning mutual hindrance. I mean, because we've been quite a bit of diverse discussion going on, we can call it there and end there, or we can continue. It's entirely.
What's the time now?
The time is 10:30.
So we have 1/2 an hour. We would continue. How long is the other chapter?
This chapter is
that's again another evidence for actually discussing the ayah. ما كان اتخذ الله من ولد وما كان معه من إله. Allah didn't have or adopted any child, and there's no other deity beside him. Otherwise, if each one of them will take his creation and go away, or will try to compete and defeat each other. So it's impossible. That's another evidence for the unity, but it's called Dalil al-Tamanu. But we have used the Dalil of necessary existence. That's necessary existence can apply only to one being, cannot apply to two. I think this is more powerful and more, but it's deeper, it's more philosophical. This is more appealing to the common man. Dalil al-Tamanu. It's a bit long, I think. How many pages it is?
This one's only 7 pages, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is mutual hindrance. The one after that is facade, underpinning reversal facade.
The same. What's the meaning? Fasad to rebut Ibn Taymiyyah. I would say keep that because the fasad, because Ibn Taymiyyah claimed that the ayah لو كان في آية من الله لفسدتها, because he mean ilah is ma'bud, is the one worshipped, which is rubbish, obviously. It's just BS, absolute BS. And say if there was another deity, the universe will be corrupted because worshipping another deity will corrupt the people. That's his nonsense. It is the same like a Dalil Tamano. And I answer to him and show that he is mistaken there. So it belongs together. Maybe we leave that for next time.
Sure, no problem.
And then we have the question there.
So that next week will be a tamanu and then facade.
Facade, yeah.
Okay, inshallah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Other formulation of the Dalil al-Fasad. Dalil al-Tamanu. It's another side of the coin, completing the picture.